Hello and welcome to my fourth set of book critiques. We have many interesting books to see, so let's begin our adventure. The feature text for this set is Olive's Ocean by Kevin Henkes. In this realistic fiction novel, 12-year-old Martha and her family are going on their annual vacation to Cape Cod to visit her grandmother. This trip to the beach proves to have more significance than in years past, and she leaves knowing she'll never be the same. I was impressed with the talent of the author to understand a teenage girl's thought process and how he strung the events together in a meaningful yet probable way. I can see how many young students would be able to connect with some aspect of the main character, making it a great book to use in the classroom. The first lesson I created was on the writing process. In this book, Martha decides she wants to be a writer. This can be easier said than done, and Martha struggles a lot with fulfilling this dream of hers. One strategy that Martha could have used was following the steps of the writing process. After students had been explicitly taught the writing process, they would break into groups to brainstorm and draft a modern twist on a fairy tale or folk tale. The draft would be given to a different group to be revised and edited. A final group would take the finished product and publish it using a form of technology. These stories would be shared during a story time at the local library. Here is an example of a published story based on Beauty and the Beast using Story Jumper. Another lesson that could be done after reading this text is a lesson on coastal regions. The topic could be introduced using a closed word sort, having students organize vocabulary words into categories such as landforms, occupations, weather, and diet. As the class went over the categories, each one would be expounded on and explained in detail. Examples of these regions could be shown briefly using Google Maps on the projector. The students would then be asked to each find a different coastal region to research and create a stop on a class-wide Google tour. This Google tour would be shared with local travel agencies for clients who would like to travel to the coast. Here is an example of a Google tour on coastal regions. Some options for coastal regions to research are Cape Cod, Massachusetts, the place where the story took place. Cinque Terre in Italy, much farther away but still a beautiful coastal region. Other options include San Diego, California, Plymouth, England, Sydney, Australia, and many, many more. I also read 7 other books for this book critique. The second book I read was A Story by Gail E. Haley. This story is a classic form of traditional literature that explains the origin of stories through African folklore and colorful illustrations. The third book I read was Freedom Summer by Deborah Wiles. By viewing the civil rights movement from the eyes of a child, the inhumane treatment of African Americans in the 60s can be seen vividly. The author does a marvelous job of combining facts with fiction to create a moving piece of literature. The fourth book I read was The House in the Night by Susan Marie Swanson. This illustrated poem was adapted from age-old nursery rhymes in England that the author loved as a child. The use of line and color in this book are very prominent in telling the story. The fifth book I read was May I Bring a Friend by Beatrice Schenck de Regen. I was humored by the rhyming pattern in this book and the repetition of events that make the book predictable without knowing exactly what will come next. The sixth book I read was The Judge by Harv Zemak. In addition to its rich use of vocabulary and humorous content, the ending teaches an important lesson for children and adults alike to learn. The seventh book I read was Island of the Blue Dolphins by Scott Odell. The virtues of courage and perseverance are exemplified so beautifully through the protagonist, reminding the reader that with those virtues they are able to overcome any challenges in their life. The eighth and final book I read was The Napping House by Audrey Wood. This book has been a favorite of mine to use in the early childhood classroom. Students find it humorous and calming, bringing a sense of peace to the classroom in the midst of chaos. Thank you for watching!